Hey everyone, and welcome to Lead Your Movement. I'm Angelique Rewers, CEO and founder of The Corporate Agent, and this is our weekly show where we talk to business leaders and entrepreneurs who are using their business in order to drive positive change in the world. And normally at this point, I would be introducing you to our guest. We had a slight scheduling conflict that came up the last minute for today's guest. And so we decided to take this time to share with all of you in our community some of the strategies that we've been sharing with our clients. One of the big issues that we've been talking with our clients. So if you are here with us live today, you are in for a treat because we're going to be talking about how coaches and consultants and professional service providers who are either solo experts or have small micro firms can scale their companies in a very simple, very straightforward way that does not require Facebook ads or Google ads or funnel building or creating 6 months worth of online training and some of those other tools that you can use to scale your business, but that take a lot of time, a lot of outside expertise. They have big upfront costs to them. And you don't know until you've invested 5, 6, 7, 8 months building it and putting all that time and energy and money into it if it's even going to work. And so, one of the things we like to do is help our clients to have a scaling strategy that they can do from the very, very beginning of their business, a scaling strategy that they can actually get in place even before they're even making any money in their business. So, that's what I want to talk with you all about. We're going to go about 30 minutes on the live show today. So, if you are here with us live on Lead Your Movement, welcome. Definitely encourage you to say hello. Let us know you're here, where you're joining from. And please, by all means, post your questions from wherever you are watching. If you're joining us from inside of our Get Corporate Clients Facebook group, just be sure to let me know when you post who it is, because all I can see from my end of the screen, if you're joining us from Facebook, is Facebook user. So it's always nice when I know who's out there and who's joining us. If this is your first time joining the show, I definitely encourage you to make sure that you are subscribed to our channel on YouTube under Angelique Rewers so that you get notified of all the latest posts of videos, especially this show. And you can also catch the show over on Spotify, where we make it available as a podcast. So follow us there as well. All right. So let's talk about scaling today. And I just want to pull up here my screen so that I can see it. And I want to talk about scaling and what that means for a consultant or a coach or a professional service provider. And a term that we use at the corporate agent with our clients is a term called bench. And it's a term that's really borrowed from the sports world because we always tell our clients to make sure that if they want to scale their business, that they build out their bench. And so if you're a for those of you who are sports fanatics, or maybe you played sports in high school or your kids play sports, you know that there are the players who are out on the field or out on the court, right? So you've got your football players out on the field and the rest of the players are sitting on the bench, or you have your basketball team, or in my case, it was lacrosse and field hockey. And those of us who started in the game, we were on the field and then our backups were over on the bench. And the thing was, the coach would put those bench members into the game if and when they were needed. And so that's where we borrowed the term from, was from that concept of having a backup bench in the sports world. And the reason we use that term bench in terms of this concept of having other people that you can put in the game with you is to delineate those people from your team. We're always hearing in the solopreneur, small business owner marketplace that if you want to grow your business, you have to build your team. And that is true. But most of the time, when people are talking about building your team, they're talking about you hiring a bookkeeper or hiring an assistant, an executive assistant, or a personal assistant, or maybe even a virtual assistant who's handling your techie type things, right? If you use Infusionsoft or you use Active Campaign or ClickFunnels, who's the person who's building that for you? Do you have a social media assistant who's taking care of your posts on Instagram? Or maybe they're talking about someone in your team who is helping to run all the ships and all the trains on time and making sure everything's getting where it needs to be, an office manager, for example. Those people on your team are really, really important to the operations of your business. The problem with those folks, though, is they are what's called a cost center in your business. They're a cost center. And so let me back up there for a second. In the corporate world, that's where these terms come from. Organizations look at their company and they say, okay, what part of our business are our cost centers? And what part of our business are our profit centers? So you've got your cost centers and your profit centers. And cost centers are all of those parts of a company that are essentially overhead. So if you're working for, Acme Corporation and you're looking at human resources, facilities management, the finance department, the accounting department, the corporate communications department, those parts of the business are all of your cost centers. And then you've got your profit centers, and those are the part of your business that make money. And so that's your sales team. That's the part of the company that's actually manufacturing the widgets and putting the widgets out onto the shelves at Target and Walmart and Best Buy, because that's the product that's actually making money. And so that side of your business is the part of the business that's actually responsible for generating revenue. It's the iPhones that are sold at the AT&T stores and the Verizon stores. That iPhone is a profit center to the business because it's what they're selling. When you're a consultant, when you're a coach, when you're a trainer, when you're a speaker, when you're a professional service provider, your widget, your product that is your profit center is the expertise. It's that expert services that you're providing. So that's your profit center side of your business. And so it's very important when you're looking at your company that you're understanding when you're growing out the company and you're adding more people. The question is, first and foremost, are you going to add them first on the cost center side of your business, or are you going to add them first on your profit center side of your business? And that's why we came up with that term bench, because your bench are squarely on the profit center side of your business. When they're working with your clients, you're making money. When they're sitting on the bench and you don't have a client opportunity for your bench members, then you're not paying them. And so they're not making any money. It's not costing you anything. But when they are in the game, you're always making money, because that's the widget that you're selling, is the expertise, the services, the brain power that those bench members are bringing to your company. So that's the difference between a cost center and a profit center in your business. And if you've never really thought about your company that way, that mindset shift alone is very, very profitable and growth oriented, because it really helps you better understand the business that you're in. So I'm going to take a breath there and just say hello to a couple of folks, from Gina from sunny North Carolina. I love it. And from Harbor, Washington. So good to see you. Victoria, British Canada, from Chicago. Welcome, you guys. It is, I will tell you, we're here. For those of you who know, I'm based in Boca Raton, Florida. We've been here for almost 7 years now, which is hard to believe. We've been here for 7 years. And it's already starting to get humid, and the temperatures, you can already feel it. We have maybe, I think, 4 or 5 more weeks of nice sort of cool temperatures, enjoyable temperatures, and then we're already, it goes instantaneously from cool to sort of sweltering. But I wouldn't trade it for the world, because I hate the cold. So that's all good for me. All right, so there you go. So we talked profit center versus cost center, and the idea that you scale your business in that professional services world by adding people to your bench who are other experts who can work with your clients. So generally speaking, When you look at your bench, you're talking about other consultants, other coaches, other trainers, copywriters, graphic designers, speakers, train the trainer experts, project managers, communications experts. These would be types of people that when you land a client opportunity, they are on your bench to work with your client under your brand, not their own brand, under your brand, so that you're essentially able to create a team comprised of subcontracting vendors under you. That's sort of a more advanced. I don't like to use the term subcontractor too much because it can make folks feel that it's more complicated than it really needs to be, but that's essentially what it is. And by the way, big companies use this strategy too. When I was in the defense sector and we would win a huge contract with the Pentagon, our team was always comprised of subcontractors that would help us deliver that solution to the government. And so that concept is the same. It's just scaled down to a very simple format for your business. The problem for a lot of folks is they make a ton of mistakes with this strategy when they're doing it. And so I want to talk to you today a little bit about some of the conversations we've been having in our velocity community with our clients about what to avoid when you do this strategy. Okay. But the first is to understand the difference between your bench and your team, and the idea that your bench is that group of independent contractors, subcontractors working with your firm under your brand, and that they're that profit center that's only going into the game when you need them. All right, so let's talk for a second about when do you build your bench? Because if I had to pick one mistake that everyone makes, it's waiting too long to build their bench because they think that they shouldn't build their bench until they have the opportunity to bring these other people off the bench and put them in the game. When in fact the opposite is true. One of the things we discovered probably about 6 or 7 years ago when we started really getting into this with our clients and really having them focus on building out their benches was that this concept of let me get the opportunity first and then I'm going to think about bringing on my bench. Huge problems with that. One of the major problems with that is that your brain um, is really has a mind of its own. And so what ends up happening if you don't already have those individuals identified and you don't already have it crystal clear in your mind's eye of all the services that you can bring to bear for a particular client and how easy it's going to be to mobilize when you have an opportunity. What ends up happening is the amount of the size of blind spot that you have in your business is as big as the galaxy. It's really fascinating. And I didn't always appreciate that. I'm going to be honest with you. If I went back 2007, 2008, 2009, even maybe 2010, when I was first working with small business owners, and they would say to me, well, let me win this opportunity, Angelique, and then I'll worry about building out my bench. I would buy into that story. Like, oh, that sounds reasonable. That sounds really logical. And then we really kind of watched how it played out. And the problem was that consultants and coaches and trainers and speakers and professional service providers only see the size opportunities that they are currently set up to mobilize on. So right now in your business, if you feel like you could take on $100,000 opportunity and that's basically the size steak that you could eat, then that's what your brain will allow you to see is like the 32-ounce ribeye because you're like, that's all I can even wrap my mind around. And so it's not conscious, it's completely subconscious. So you're probably not even aware that you're doing it, but you're literally driving past opportunities because you don't see them because you don't have a bench. And so you haven't even calibrated your brain to see those larger opportunities. And we all know this is true because we experience it in other facets of our life, right? So the example that everyone immediately can relate to is the idea of you buying a new car. And as soon as you decide that you're going to buy X vehicle, suddenly everywhere you go on the road, you see that car in every color. You see last year's model, you see the new model, you see the one that's white, the one that's red. You start like, oh, I like that. I don't like that. The second that your brain says that's the car I want, now all it's everywhere, right? So, same exact thing when you build your bench and you know who's going to be on that bench. Now, all of a sudden, your brain can start to see those multiple six-figure opportunities for your business because it doesn't mean more work for you. And it's not frightening or scary. And most of all, the brain doesn't see it as a threat. It doesn't see those opportunities as a threat because there's a plan in place for it. And number two, our brain sees what we focus on. So if we focus and we have a plan on a larger opportunity, and then we have the team to do it, the bench to do it, now all of a sudden we can see it. So I wish somebody would have given me this advice in 2006. In 2006 is when I put my business together, my business plan together. I was still employed full time at the time, but I was talking to some of my coworkers every day at lunch about putting my plan in place. I was working on my logo and I was getting my LLC filed and I was setting up my business bank account. That 2006 feels like a lifetime ago. But I was putting all of that in place. And I wish somebody would have told me this in 2006. I wish they would have said, Angelique, if you don't put a bench in place from the get go, all you're doing is trading your full time job with a guaranteed salary and benefits for a self employed job in which you have to do everything yourself and you have to basically do the hunting, do the cooking, and eat it all yourself. Basically, it's all yours. And all you've done is trade one job in for another job. And oh, by the way, this new job that you created for yourself uh, comes with no paid vacation. So if you want to take time off, if you want to have a sick day, if you want to go to the islands with your husband, we didn't have our twins back then, so we had a lot more vacation time. If you want to do any of those things, by the way, you're going to have to just pause your revenue. Okay, you're going to have to pause your revenue in order to be able to go take that vacation or have that migraine sick day because you don't have anybody else to work with your clients. And oh, by the way, one more thing, Angelique, you know how to win clients because you've been that corporate decision maker. So you're going to start winning clients, but you're going to have to deliver all of that work. But while you're so busy delivering all that work yourself, you're not going to have time to build your brand, to build your thought leadership platform, and most of all, to keep your pipeline full with new opportunities. So you're going to constantly be feasting and having a famine, feast, famine, feast, famine. You're going to win a big contract, multi six figures, go deliver it all. And when that's done, panic time, hustle time, because now we've got to go get another opportunity. So I wish somebody would have said to me literally while I was going through picking out my brand colors and my horrible brand name in 2006 that nobody could pronounce. It was French. It was a really bad idea. Somebody also should have said, do not name your company Bon Mo because no one knows what that means, let alone pronounce it, let alone how to spell it. But I also wish they would have said to me, build your bench right away. Don't go in it alone. Have people so that every time you win a client opportunity, you really can see a huge opportunity. You co-create a bigger opportunity with the client that involves other people. They're making you're making revenue, they're making revenue, you're making profit, on top of what you're charging essentially for them. And then you can keep building your business. The first time that I did that, um, was life changing. The first time I built my bench, it was an accident. A huge corporation came to me and they said, we need more of you. Like, we need more help. We need you to put people on site at our offices to help us with this. So I hurried up and I built my bench, which was a little stressful because I didn't have time to find the people that I wanted because now the client's asking for them. So I was rushing. I ended up putting a team of bench members on site physically at one of my clients. And it was amazing because then the size checks that I was getting in the mail every month were like, my eyes were sort of, and I'm not doing the work, all of it. I was still working with my clients, I was still doing what I was doing, but checks that were beyond what I possibly, the time money wall that I could have possibly have achieved on my own. It just, it wasn't possible. I had already hit the time money wall. So now I'm starting to get, these checks in the mail every month. And out of that, of course, I'm paying my bench, but there was a really hefty profit left on top of it for me. And that was a huge breakthrough for me. Made a lot of mistakes. No, I didn't have me. I wish I had me now telling me then what to do. Right? Hindsight is always 2020. But it made a huge difference, and that was really a turning point when I kind of think about over the course of the last 15 years since I started my entrepreneurial journey. When I think about those last 15 years, that was probably one of the biggest sort of mental switches. So, for what it's worth, if you don't have a bench in place now, you needed it yesterday or last week or the month before. So there is no like wait till you're at 50,000, wait till you're at 100,000, wait till you're at 250,000. It's build it right away. You're not paying for it, so it doesn't hurt having it in place, and it instantaneously up levels your entrepreneurial maturity. It up levels your CEO mindset the second that you put it in place. So really, really, really powerful, tweak here in your mind. So I just want to say hi to Lynn from Ricerstown, which is practically my in-laws just moved from Ricerstown, Lynn. So it used to be my backyard, and Ron from Columbia. It's so good to see you guys. And Jen, I don't know why I didn't know you were in Des Moines. My husband has a ton of family in Monticello, which I've been to exactly one time. I saw everything that you can possibly see in Monticello, and I'm like, check. A check on that one. And Miami and Colorado and Northern North Carolina. It's good to see all of you guys. All right. So, big mistake number one with building your bench is to do it yesterday. I can't say that enough. It just makes a tremendous difference. And we've just added, by the way, this year we put 4 more people in late 2020. We added 4 more bench members to our team. And, we have a mix. We have both on the cost center and the profit center side of our business, we have a mix of full-time employees, part-time employees, and bench members. And it really allows us to scale quickly as we see opportunities in the market, to respond to what's happening, and to make sure that we're managing our business with fiscal responsibility. So it's a really great thing to do. People often ask me, what should I build first? Should I get my assistant? Should I get my graphic designer? Should I get my bookkeeper? Or should I build my bench first? And my answer is always, you build your bench first. You always grow the profit center side of your business. Always you grow the profit center side of your business before you grow the cost side center of the business, because the profit center side of your business is what's going to pay for the cost center side of your business. And if you build it the right way, if you build it using a bench, you're not even paying for it until they're in the game. And when they're in the game, then you're making money. So another question that I get asked, and Victoria, one of our clients, asked this great question in our Facebook group: can you talk about revenue, and can you talk about sort of contracting with your bench? And so, I know this goes without saying, but I have to say it anyway. I'm not a CPA, nor am I an attorney. So none of this is financial advice from a licensed CPA perspective. It is not legal advice. This is just a business discussion, right? So from a business perspective, you're looking at these folks as being independent contractors. And so it's really important that you yourself have established a business entity. If you are operating as a sole proprietor, that has to stop now, like immediately, as in get off as soon as we wrap up here, get off this session and call your attorney, call your tax accountant, go on LegalZoom, whatever you have to do. We cannot, in today's environment in the marketplace, operate as sole proprietors. It's just Not okay. It's also not okay to use a Gmail email address. Okay, guys. So, like, this is about entrepreneurial maturity 101. You have to have a business entity. You have to have a business checking account. You have to have an attorney doing your contracts. You have to have a professional email address, right? Like, that's what running a business is. It's really important to do that. You can get yourself in some really big, pots of hot water on the legal and the tax front if you're not doing that. So please work with the professionals to do that. Your bench are independent contractors, as long as you're following all the tax code and the IRS code. So, again, talk to your tax professional about that. Make sure you're doing everything by the book. But you want to make sure that you work with an attorney in your state who understands your state laws. And you want to have independent contract. You want to have contracts for your independent contractors. It's a mouthful and a tongue twister. So you want to make sure that you do that. And I can't emphasize enough the importance of working with an attorney who knows the laws of your state and who understands employment laws and subcontracting laws, and particularly in the professional services space. So that's a really, really smart thing to do. When it comes to revenue, this is the big problem number two. This is the huge mistake that everyone makes when they're establishing a bench, and that is overpaying their bench members by a country mile. And there are so many reasons that they do that. The first reason that they overpay their bench by a country mile is because they don't know how to approach potential bench members in the right way and lay the foundation up front for what that relationship is going to look like. And so, one of the things we like to do for our clients is really give them a script of, look, this is exactly what you need to say so that you're getting off on the right foot and they're perceiving the opportunity with you in the right lens. I'm going to come back to that in a second. So, just kind of stick a pin in that. But the idea of approaching potential bench members in the right way. The second reason they overpay potential bench members is because they pick the wrong bench members. What you don't want to do when you're scaling your coaching and your consulting business with other bench members is really ask people who are empire builders in their own right to be on your bench, because most empire builders, the opportunities that they're creating on their own are so large that the opportunity cost to them of being on your bench doesn't make financial sense for them to do that. They're rainmakers, they're empire builders. Why would they go be on your bench? So, even though those folks are amazing and wonderful, there are also amazing and wonderful people out there who are so phenomenal at what they do, but they absolutely hate business development. They absolutely hate finding the clients. They still want the flexibility and freedom to be their own business owner and get to say yay or nay to the opportunities they take on. But they don't want to have to be hunters. They're great as farmers. They're great getting referrals, but they don't want to have to really go out and hunt for those opportunities. So those folks who are a 10, an 8, 9, 10 in their field of practice, but who are like a 3, 4, 5 on the marketing and the hunting and the selling and the closing the deals, that is really a sweet spot for bench members, because they're looking at that going like, you mean I only get to do the stuff I love to do and you're going to bring me opportunities? Well, it's Christmas, like that's their mentality about it. It's just such a win-win-win. So number one is not approaching potential bench members the right way. Number two is going after the wrong folks to be on your bench. Do not go after those 9, 10 quick starts who are empire builders. Someone like me is probably not the best bench person for you, right? The third thing that folks really step in it on bench agreements is when they're putting that independent contractor. Please hear me on this. This is such an important writer downer. When you sign a bench agreement with someone, like you've got an independent contractor agreement and you're setting all of that up, a lot of people make this massive mistake of setting one rate with that individual way up front, and they lock themselves into a price with that bench member, which is totally, I mean, it makes sense if you haven't done it before that you would do that, because if you're hiring an executive assistant, let's say the rate you're going to pay them is $30 an hour. So of course you're going to lock that in. You've got a part-time person, or maybe even a virtual assistant, who's not an employee. They're an independent contractor. They have a VA business, and they're going to charge you $75 an hour to set up your, landing pages and your click funnels and stuff like that, right? So you're paying $75 an hour. So people are like, oh, okay. So now I've got this bench member. And so I'm going to set up, I'm going to go ahead and set up a flat rate with them, just like I do with everybody else. But they're a profit center. They're not a cost center. So it's completely different. And they're only going in the game when you need them in the game. So you have to think of it more like when you're a talent agent in LA, an actor doesn't have just one rate, right? So that agent's kind of negotiating each and every time. Your bench is more like that, because here's the thing. You change your rates when you work with different clients. So let's say, a mid-market company comes to you and says, we would like to bring you in to coach 20 of our managers. And this is what we're looking for. What are you going to charge us to coach 20 of these managers? And, normally, let's say for 6 months, you charge $12,000 per manager. But they come back to you and they say, well, we are in the hotel industry, and it's been a real lousy year for us. I don't know if you've heard or not, but we have this pandemic going on, and it's been a shit year for us. So how about $9,000 per, manager? Would you do it for that? And you're looking at your own pipeline and you're going, well, yeah, I'm aware of the pandemic because my revenues were down. So I would love to have this opportunity. Oh, wait, I told my bench coaches that this is what I was going to pay them. So now, guess who gets squeezed? You get squeezed. The bench isn't getting squeezed. The corporate client isn't getting squeezed. You locked yourself into a rate with your bench members and you got yourself squeezed. Don't do that. Don't do that. What you want to do is you want to have a master agreement with your bench members, and then you can issue statements of work. You could think of them almost as like purchase orders, statements of work that you then issue to your bench members. As each opportunity arises, you can go to them and say, look, we're getting close to closing this deal with Acme Manufacturing in Ohio, and we're going to be coaching 20 of their managers. I would like you to coach 10 of them. And this is what the fees look like on that opportunity. Would you like to be a part of, would you like that or not? So now you're able to customize the pricing to meet the opportunity, to maintain your margins on top of that, and what those margins should look like on top of that. So, you don't want to lock yourself in one contract. You want to have a master contract, and then as each opportunity comes up, and we actually give our clients in our bench workshops, we actually say, look, this is what a statement of work looks like. This is how you can structure that. This is what you want. We have calculators that we use so we can get very, very specific. If our clients plug in very specific numbers into this calculator that we built of exactly what IP they're using versus what IP their bench members are bringing to the table, how much delivery the main business owner is doing versus how much delivery each bench member is doing. And that way our clients can just kind of plug those numbers in, hit enter, and it pops out and says, this is how much to pay your bench. And so, so you really want to give yourself that flexibility, because sometimes your bench is actually bringing their IP to the table. And they're bringing the man hours. They're rolling up their sleeves. They're getting in there and they're doing the service delivery. And other times, they're just doing service delivery and they're not bringing any IP. It's all your IP that they're delivering. And so you've got to account for that when you decide how much to pay your bench. And after 15 years, I guess it was after 13 years, we built a calculator for that, because it's like, whoa, how do you come up with it? So we had to build a calculator so that it would be easy for folks to figure out. But you want to think about that. How much are you delivering versus how much are they delivering? How much of your IP are you bringing to the table versus how much of their IP, which might be none or it might be a lot, depending. If it's someone who does what you do and you're using all of your frameworks and you're using all of your materials, then you're bringing it. In my programs, our bench members primarily use all of my IP. There are business, they're the business development frameworks and the scripts and the templates and the models that I built. So largely our, bench is bringing sort of, yes, they're bringing their brain power and they're bringing their man hours, but they're leveraging the content that I've built. They're leveraging the frameworks that I've built. So that looks very different than the relationships where I say to a bench member, I actually don't know anything about that. I don't know about that assessment or that training. I need you to bring that to the table. So then I have to pay them differently for that. And you should pay, your bench differently for that as well. All right. So I'm going to take some of these questions here on that are over here in the chat. I love these. I will tell you guys, we actually have a workshop that we're doing on this. It's an all-day live workshop on building your bench. We put everything that we've learned in 15 years into an 8-hour day, and we have it coming up on March 24th. So if you want those templates and you want those calculators, we do that in a one-day bench, and you do not have to be a Velocity member in order to get access to that. All right. So Allison said, are bench members people who do the same or similar things to you, or those who complement you so you can offer a more full service solution to a client? Allison, I love this question. And the answer is both. The answer is both. And in fact, we really encourage our clients to have both. So you need more of you. We call those people mini me's, inspired by Dr. Evil from Austin Powers. If you remember, he had a mini me. So we call those your mini me's. And so you definitely want mini yous. And those are, great people to find. If you use a Kolbe assessment, you want to make sure they have a very similar cognitive build to you, that they have a similar affective build as you. So you want to look at a DISC assessment or a Gallup Strengths Finders assessment, or I think now it's called just Gallup Strengths or Clifton Strengths. So you want to have, a couple of people who are built very much like you, that are your mini-me's. But then you also want to have folks who are going to round out your solution. So a lot of times we might have folks, for example, who are coaches, and it's great to have a few other coaches on the bench, mini me's. And then they will also add on things like trainers who are fantastic in the classroom, facilitators, again, in the classroom, or facilitated, team group, like group discussions. They might bring on people who are experts at train the trainer, or people who can actually develop custom training content for the client. One that is overlooked by everyone, Allison, are corporate communications experts to bring on to the bench. One of the easiest upsells that you can do as any professional service provider is offering communication support, because if a company is bringing you in, I don't care if it's to launch training, marketing, process improvement, coaching, leadership development, diversity, equity, and inclusion, the company has to roll that out inside their organization. And about 30 to 35% of any project success comes down to how it was communicated to those in the organization. If people are walking into a half-day training and the manager did a lousy job communicating it to those employees walking in, why it's of value to them, what they're going to get out of it, how though that group of employees comes into a training versus how a group of employees comes into a training where that communication was superb and hit all the right notes and was done strategically, that's two totally different experiences for the training. And so, a great one for everybody to put onto their bench is our communications experts, who could you can then say when you're sitting down co-creating. Hopefully, you're using our templates for co-creating the solutions with these organizations, and you're able to say right at the table, you're able to say, look, we have found that this is a critical success metric and factor. We can include that. We can do all the communications for you, give that to you on a silver platter, and that means it's taking even more work off of your plate and making sure that your employees are walking in. So that's such a great question, Allison, and the short answer is you want both. And you really want to look across sort of the life cycle and the client journey for your clients, and you want to make sure that you have bench for that entire client journey. Another great question here is, should all the bench members use email from your company? In other words, when they work for you, they don't use their Gmail accounting. Yeah, it's really important, Lynn. And we actually talk about that in the bench workshop. It's really worth having your bench members and it's so easy. I mean, with Google Drive and the way that Gmail has set up these business accounts so inexpensively, I think we pay $9.99, $10 a month for every one of our team members' email addresses. Now we have a bigger team, so that adds up when you've got 15, 16, 17 people on a team, and they're all using an email. But if you don't have to have all of them set with that email address instantaneously, but you can have it kind of set up and ready to go. And then when you have that opportunity, put it into your email. Now, you might think this is purely for optics, but it's not purely for optics. Certainly, it does speak volumes to the corporate client, to the B2B client, that they're interacting with your team, all through your brand. But I'll tell you, the bigger issue is that no matter how much due diligence you do, no matter how much you think you know someone, and actually, no matter how long you've already worked with them, and you can tell I'm speaking from experience here. You can have a great relationship with someone and everything is going great. And you dotted all your I's, Lynn, and you crossed all your T's, and you did every last thing that you can do to protect yourself from someone flaking out on you. And an unexpected life thing happens, and that bench member disappears on you, and they go completely MIA, and you've got a client opportunity, right? Sure felt good that I could get into that inbox and see exactly what was going on, and everything was stored in our Google Drive and everything was in email, and I could get right in there and I could handle the opportunity, right? Like I could just deal with it. So you really, 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 I can't say that enough, want to make sure that those email communications with your firm go through an email mechanism that you control. Absolutely. Danny says, well, I'm going to go down this list here. Oh, it's so good to see you, Robert. It's really good to see you. Do you use a software or service for hiring bench members? You know what, Robert, a lot of our velocity clients all bench for each other in our velocity program, because you're talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of experts that are in that program, and they're all over the world, and the community just keeps growing. So they bench for one another. So they often find it right through the community or through our Get Corporate Clients Facebook group. And so they also find it through associations that they're a part of. So, we're always saying to folks who are part of ICF or IPEC, the coaching organization, folks who are members of the Association for Talent Development, ATD, or training industry, look, you can go to those professional associations and find folks there. Although we certainly encourage folks to look first in the Velocity group, because those folks all get it, right? Like they've all been kind of indoctrinated into really how to show up for corporate clients. So For us personally at the corporate agent, it's a little bit trickier because we don't really have that sort of like exact peer group. A couple of our bench members have actually come right from our own community because we saw the kind of, we had a chance to work with them. We've also posted bench opportunities on LinkedIn jobs, on indeed.com. We used hiremymom.com to find folks. We've used Mom Core, which I'm not sure is around anymore. So we've actually used both. We often talk to our network. And in fact, one of the best places that people miss looking for bench members, you guys, is at their own clients and people who used to work at their own client organizations. And right now, you've got tons of people who are, I don't know if you guys realize this or not, but the obviously world's like, worst recession last year, right? We all know that. But the reorgs inside of companies are starting to happen now. I don't know if you guys realize that's what's going on, but a lot of companies didn't know what they were going to do. They've been figuring it out. The pace of reorgs happening inside of companies, the amount of people getting laid off right now, it's always weird when the big layoffs happen. It's almost always like now you're doing it. That always happens toward the end of recessions, toward that. So a lot of companies are laying people off. People have chosen not to go back. When certain companies go back to the office, there are going to be some people who say, you know what, this isn't for me. I'm going to take some time off. So don't be afraid to call some of your favorite clients and say, do you have any colleagues that have left, at some point, that are brilliant at X, especially for those of you who've worked in human resources? Your clients are human resources. Your clients are talent development. Your clients are the marketing departments. A lot of times the best bench members come from people who've been on the inside. They're leaving to kind of start their own gig. They're not exactly sure what that's going to look like, but man, do they have knowledge? Do they have the know-how, to deliver for you? So don't be afraid to talk to your network. I think our tendency for some reason, you guys, is to go into this place of let's start with the coldest possible, like people always go to like cold marketing instead of starting with their hot network and their warm network. And the same thing goes for finding bench members and team members. Work hot to cold, not cold to hot. Always exhaust your trusted known network first. Put word out on the street. And I don't know, not a week goes by that people aren't posting in our velocity community of, I need bench, I need bench. So, when you're in the right networks, typically the opportunity is there for you guys as well. All right, I'm going to take just two more questions here and then I'm going to wrap up. And then for those of you who would really like, you're like, I've got to build my bench, Angelique. I need paid vacation. We've got that workshop on March 24th. It's amazing, 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 amazing. I think it's probably the most thorough that we've ever done anything. In fact, Phil, the last time we did this workshop, he said, Angelique, there was like 10 minutes left to go. And I had answered every possible question. And people were like, Phil, you've answered every possible, like, we can't even make up a question at this point. You literally gave us all these templates. I'm a bit overwhelmed with managing myself, much less managing others. Scared of more trouble than it's worth with building, managing a bench. Feels risky and super resource intensive. Are my fears founded? No, but I'm going to say that, Danny, right? So here's the thing. With the number one, there is no risk, not really, because you're gonna just going through the exercise of identifying the right people helps you understand your own business better. It helps you understand where you have gaps and what you should be doing for your clients and what that journey should be looking for and working with you. That's number one. So once you build that bench and you have those folks there, then the question comes, okay, now I'm going to start looking for larger opportunities. My brain is going to start seeing those bigger opportunities. And what we have found, Danny, is that most people will have, 5, 6, 7 people initially that they've identified. And in those first initial opportunities where they start leveraging bench, they're only usually bringing on maybe 1, 2 people those first couple of times. But then they realize how much more money they just made and how much more rewarding it was to have a group of people to collaborate with on the client and to have those conversations. And I will tell you, managing a bench is so much more easy than managing team. Executive assistants and graphic design, all of that stuff. There's a lot that goes into managing your cost center side of your business, dealing with payroll, dealing with benefits, dealing with tracking employees vacation time, project managing everyone's tasks and assignments, all of those things. Your bench members actually should be able to do a lot very, very easily. If you've got a framework for how you do coaching calls and they're set, one of the greatest places for people to start is with coaches who can coach, more junior level managers and individual contributors. And you set up a process and there's a scheduling system and they're doing those coaching calls and you're doing some check-ins with them. And that first and second and time you work with them, you're going to be a little bit more closely tied. But you should be selecting bench members that are professionals, that they understand how to show up for things on time, that they share your integrity and appreciation for excellence in the delivery to clients, right? And so part of that goes into your expectations that you're setting in the beginning. And I think that, at the end of the day, everybody has to look at what their goals are for their own business. But I will tell you this, there are two strategies that we harp on, and that everyone comes back to us and says, I should have done it sooner. You were right. I should have done it sooner. Number one are executive roundtables, and number two is building the bench. Like that, those are the two that if I had $1 for every time that someone said that, I could probably build my own hotel, because that is how many times we hear, I should have just done it sooner. I should have started, just get started, learn how to do it, get going with it. And really, again, I can't emphasize enough how the everyone talks about up leveling their mindset, but you don't up level your mind. It's like that book, no one learned to ride a bicycle at a seminar. No one learns to up level their mindset at a seminar. People up level their mindset because they take actions that allow them to grow. And when you go through building the bench and you start to really look at your client journey and all the things and really understanding where you can be of greater value for your clients, everything in your mindset begins to shift and you start to show up very differently. And I think when we look at sort of where the market is headed and the opportunities that are out there, companies want to know that if they're going to invest in a relationship with you, that you're really going to be able to be there for them. And having a bench allows you to authentically talk in terms of we and us and not I and me in your marketing and how you show up. And it's a big, big up level. So I love that question, but I would definitely encourage you guys to get going with this. All right, so this went a little bit longer than I thought, but you guys know me. You know me. I said to my team, I'm just going to do 30 minutes on bench. Nope. I don't know I don't know if that ever happens. My team, we used to have these when we do retreats. Actually, it'll be funny if we have a retreat coming up. We're doing an in-person retreat in April. Now, the bench workshop on March 24th is totally done virtually over Zoom, but we're doing an in-person retreat in April. Double masking, PCR test required, but we are going to be in person together, which is like just blowing my mind right now. But whenever we do retreats and we put out an agenda, my creative director likes to put a little note at the bottom that all times are merely suggestions, and Angelique's going to do whatever she wants. So I'm sure that's going to be the case with our upcoming retreat as well. Okay, I love that. Lynn just said, to be honest, I'm on a bench right now for a larger coaching company and I love it. I'm learning so much from the team there. I love that, Lynn. And, you do learn. I think it can be a very lonely exit, aside from not being able to take paid time off, aside from missing out on revenue, aside from missing out on those bigger, more transformational opportunities that takes more people, aside from, not creating the feast or famine cycle and having time, whenever someone says to me, and actually, Danny, you said overwhelmed, a lot of times people are overwhelmed, Danny, because they don't have a bench. And if they just had a bench, they actually would have time to do more, And so, especially when you have a great bench and you set clear expectations and you manage them in the right way, you actually have more time. So, for a lot of people, the bench is finally the thing that allows them to have fun in their business again and to fall back in love with their business and not feel in a perpetual state of overwhelm. And to Lynn's point, there is something that I think most of us who are change agents in the world, we're leading our movements. We are not meant to do it by ourselves. There's a magic that happens when we interact with other smart people who share our passion and who are bringing all their depth and breadth of experience to the table for our clients, and what that allows us to do. It's just really beautiful. So there you go. So that is my pep talk today. It is without question the number one way to scale a coaching, consulting, and professional services business. And it is the smartest first way to scale the business, because there's really no upfront cost other than putting an agreement in place and maybe doing a couple of Colby assessments, right? So, it allows you to have the scale in place first without taking that big risk and spending months and months of time doing it. So there you go. For those of you who would like to work with us on building your bench, we do have this amazing workshop coming up on March 24th, led by our Executive Vice President, Phil Dyer, who is a certified Colby consultant. So there is some Colby stuff in there as well. But it's an amazing day. It is probably one of the best one-day workshops that we do around here. And it's really amazing. So if you'd like to join us for that, the link is below at thecorporateagent.com/bench workshop. We would love to see you there. We will be back with Lead Your Movement with a typical interview next Wednesday with our guest. And I will tell you, we were looking at our spring lineup. I want to tell you about some of the guests that we have coming up so badly, but I'm superstitious and I don't like to jinx anything, so I won't. But we have really just killer guests from some top organizations and some folks who've been out of this world a few times. So we have some really cool stuff coming up that you're going to want to stay tuned for. We will be back next Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern time. Make sure you're on our email list so you get the advanced announcement as to who that guest is. For those of you who are in my Velocity community, I'm going to see you guys in about an hour for one of our brand new live trainings. So I will see you guys there. Until next week, everyone, this is Angelique signing off.